Good afternoon. My name is Doug Holder. We're here with my guest, Ralph Pennel. Sorry for a little technical stuff going on over there. Ralph, I'm going to read a brief. First of all, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to read a brief introduction to Ralph. Ralph received his BA in Creative Writing from Knox College and his MFA in Creative Writing from Hamline University. Ralph's writing has appeared on the Common Ground Review, Ropes, the Cape Rock, Appersu, Quarterly, Open to Interpretation, that's the name. Ibison Strait, the best one of them all, right? Which I put out. The Smoking Poet, do you smoke?
No.
Bound. Press, Right Hand Painting, Monologues from the Road, and various others. It's also been published with the Savannah Barber Press, Wilderness House Literary Review, and the Rain Taxi Review of Books, and has also done review of books for the Boston area small press and poetry scene. And his poetry collection, Any World Less Perfect for Dying In, will be published by Savannah Barber Press in the fall of 2014. Ralph teaches literature at Bunker Hill Community College, where I do too. And if Tim McLaughlin's out there, hi Tim, I sent an email. He's our boss.
Right.
And is the fiction editor for the Midway Journal, an online literary journal publishing out of St. Paul, Minnesota. So, well, thanks, Ralph. And we did have an interview when you first arrived from Minneapolis.
Yes.
You know, then you have that sort of Midwestern charm. Now you're becoming hard New Englander. But that was in December of 2011. I was looking up when our interview was. And since then, you've been through a lot of change. Some change we won't go into, other change we will. But you're an adjunct lecturer at Bunker Hill now. How has that been? And you've been teaching literature courses, and you've been teaching in the summer, so you're really in the life of the college. And I want to ask you how that's been for you, and also as the student, because you taught out in the Midwest, is the student different in any ways?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
So far the experience has been great. I've been teaching world literature, a couple of different sections. The World at One, which is the sort of prehistoric texts, or the earliest historic texts to the Enlightenment era, and then World at Two, which is the Enlightenment to modern era. I have to say that the student body so far in my experience has been great. A lot of times surprised by what they bring to the classroom in terms of their own experiences and in terms of the ideas that they have gleaned from the text that I asked them to read for class. The discussions are always lively. They're always ready to give their opinion. It's obvious that they're working towards something. A lot of students that go through Bunker Hill are looking to go on to the next phase, transfer to the next school, and their efforts to make that happen for themselves are very clear in the way that they prepare themselves for class. In terms of whether that's different or how that's different than my experiences in the Midwest with Globe, it's been there's a lot of similarities, but I think one of the things that I have noticed in terms of where to sort of draw lines between level of preparedness, I would say, by and large, in my experience so far, and I don't know if this is indicative of your experience, but a larger percent of the students come prepared, ready to talk, have fewer excuses.
Nothing worse when when students don't participate. You have to try to.
Right. And since literature is a discussion-based course, or should be a discussion-based course, there's always going to be a handful of students who are less willing to contribute, and of course that doesn't necessarily mean that they haven't done the work. Some of the brightest students just aren't prone to speaking up for whatever reason. But I would say, by and large, at least half of the class so far every semester ready to engage in discussion and share their ideas, and not afraid to share their ideas at all. I'd like to think that part of that has to do with...
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, and for the most part we have lively discussions, and last time I was challenged by kids, and they had me on the ropes, which is great, I guess, right? Yeah,
Right,
I mean, and, I had to think fast.
Right.
But it was good. And then our kids, a lot of them are in their 30s and 40s, and so we have a wide, diverse group of students. Pleasure teaching there. Now, you're the fiction editor of the well-respected online journal, the Midway Journal, and you told me that you redesigned. How does it differ from the past, and how was it originally designed, and how does it differ from the past? Excuse me, I just gotta go ahead and talk.
Okay. Well, anything that exists online sort of has just because of the nature of the internet, sort of comes with a built-in self-destruct button in terms of looks and functionality, because things are always changing. And so when we first went live back in the fall of 2007, what we had prepared for the journal at that point was very indicative of the kind of sites that were going up at the time. And of course, if you don't make any changes to your site begins to look a little dated, a little aged. Technology changes, functionality changes. So when we redesigned the site, we wanted to make sure that we cleared up some of the functionality issues, because there were a couple issues with navigation, like how to navigate the site. I think the new site makes that a whole lot easier. It's easier to get from page to page. And then the site just looks newer. The person that we hired to do the work for us really had her thumb on what was current, what was up to date. Of course, well, assuming we're around in 3 or 4 years, we'll have to do it again.
Do you think you will be?
I'd like to think so, yeah. I'm really invested in
I mean, there's some long-time online journal. One thing I ask is that, what I hate about it is when journals do go off, they get rid of the archives, and that's important. That's the advantage of print. You'll always have the print.
Right.
So.
If put that in air quotes.
Right.
If we did ever decide to stop publishing, I think we would make a decision to keep the archives accessible, for the sake of the authors, and we could always find it. But that's a big if. We're actually in the process of growing our staff. I've brought on an assistant fiction editor. I brought on 2 fiction readers.
Is one of the editors Prima?
Yeah. She also does a little bit of mixed genre editing for us. The other 2 other fiction readers, Ashley's been on for 2 years now, and Julie's just brought her on in the last half a year. But we're currently actually about to bring on a media intern to do some of our Facebook and Twitter stuff for us, because the more submissions we get, the more reading we have to do, the less time we have for playing on the internet in terms of our Facebook awareness. We're also looking to bring on an art editor, so a lot of things in the works. And we're currently in the talks of bringing on another drama editor. We used to have a drama editor. We used to publish drama with every issue, but he took on a new position, moved down to New Orleans, tenure-track job, which is good for him, but he just didn't feel like he had the time to continue on as the drama editor.
Yeah, I was just handed a manuscript by Alpha Michael Weaver, who was a Somerville poet, and accomplished. He studied under Paula Vogel at Brown University.
Okay.
And we're sending it out for some contacts I have. We've got my brother and his wife are in the theater, so hopefully we'll see something. So that's interesting. Now, tell us about your new poetry collection coming out from the Savannah Barber Press. What's that about?
Okay. Well, the title is World Less Perfect for Dying In, and the manuscript's broken up into a couple different sections, and the first section is titled Everything I've Ever Buried, and the second section is The World Less Perfect for Dying In. And both title sections are actually lines from a poem that serves as a frontispiece to the entire manuscript. And the titles say a lot about the kinds of themes that are indicative of the collection. And it's work that I've been amassing over several years at this point. But some of the themes, some of the primary themes are loss, rebirth, renewal, um, death, literally and figuratively. There are some poems where people die. Isolation, either self-imposed or imposed by others. So there's a lot of different themes that I was focusing on as I put this collection together. And grateful to Giovanni Barber Press.
Which is a local press,
right.
editor, Gloria Mindock. There seems to be a sort of thriving publishing community around here.
Oh, yeah. I would agree 100%. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of presses. And actually, we're going to make an appearance, Ibbotson Street, at the September 15th at the Harvard Bookstore is having, they have like a big armory, they have like a space where they have all their, store their books, and every year they have like a 3-day sort of festival of books. It's on Park Street. So, you should come down there, go to the Harvard Bookstore site under events, and you can get the specifics about it. I forget the exact address, but it's you can buy books, and you can, there'll be a lot of indie presses there.
Okay. So it'd be like a fair where you take
tables and things like that, Now, you moved from Minneapolis. In the last one, we discussed this. How has your Midwestern sensibility adapted to the heated literary scene here?
It's funny. Sometimes I forget that I really have only been on the East Coast for 4.5 years, and that I lived the rest of my entire life in the Midwest. Like, I moved around in the Midwest quite a bit. I was born in Kansas, lived most of my childhood in Illinois, spent a year in Des Moines, Iowa, lived in the Twin Cities in Minnesota for 11 years. So I was in various places in the Midwest, but for all intents and purposes, it was the Midwest exclusively. And from time to time, first of all, I don't know that I was a good fit for the Midwest. And there's a lot of my personality traits are certainly indicative of Midwestern behaviors and attitudes. But I tend to be a little more straightforward than people from the Midwest, which was a source of conflict from time to time. So in that way, I would say definitely a better fit on the East Coast. But I get pegged for a Midwesterner quite often. And I think I probably honestly I don't even know why, but
you smile a lot.
Yeah, I think that's what I was going to say that, but I didn't want to sound trite. But I think that's what it is.
Well, just leave it to me to sound trite. I'm very good at that. Very good at that. I mean, there's an openness. I don't know if that's stereotypical. I mean, a lot of open, but New England is sort of cold. Well, the West is cold. I don't know. Well, strange. But I remember you were talking about how Minneapolis was like on a grid, and Boston was on
the whole Midwest. I mean, everything in the Midwest is on a grid, and I think it creates a very different kind of way of thinking than you come here to Boston, the New England area, and everything is curving and random, and there's rotaries, and the way that, for me, is specifically when I first moved here, first of all, I was a little bit frightened of driving around in general. Like, I swore I was never going to drive through Harvard Square. Of course, now, it's nothing. But when you head out, like when you live on a grid, and you don't really have to think about how to get places. Like, you just need to know the address and whether it's a north, south, east, west kind of situation, which makes navigating Chicago really quite easy. But out here, one of my first sort of reality checks driving, I was headed out to the Brookline Booksmith, and I was heading to a literary event, and I only Googled directions for getting there, and I realized at what point, I think I was on Western Avenue, which is one way, I realized I could not return the way that I had come, and I had no idea how to get myself back. Luckily my brother lives out here, so I could call him.
Oh, I know your brother.
Yeah, he's been out here for 25 years.
What does he do?
Currently, he teaches piano lessons privately.
Yeah.
He was a professional musician for a while.
Yeah, I think you told me
yeah,
that.
yeah, he's a jazz musician. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you sent me a poem, Nighthawks, that I like. It was based, of course, by a painting by, which you'll read a little later.
Yeah.
We read a painting by Edward Hopper. And many poems have been inspired by his paintings. You know, what do you think it is about his paintings that have been, you know, it's been so inspiring to many a poet?
It's the paradox.
Yeah.
I think because he uses bright colors normally, and sometimes his colors are muted. But you know, I'm thinking of actually a print of his that I have, which is called Chop Suey. It's two women sitting in a cafe, and there's a marquee that says Chop Suey at the window, and everything's greens and reds and blues and yellows, and uses a lot of primary colors too. So the thing that he does, you know, he sets his characters in isolation, right? The narrative of his paintings is always about isolation. It's always about Americana and the isolationism of Americana in pursuit of the American dream. And I think that in and of itself is an interesting and engaging and intriguing topic for poets specifically. But then there's also just the very, very, very iconic painting, Nighthawks, which gets parodied all the time. You know, sometimes it's Humphrey Bogart and Marilyn Monroe. Sometimes it's Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. Sometimes it's The Simpsons sitting at that counter. It's sort of an everyman appeal to it, like because it is sort of heartland. No matter where it is, it really is sort of heartland Americana. It's the American dream, or the failed expectations that come with pursuit of the American dream. So every person can see
God damn,
themselves.
next time I'm in a diner late at night, I'm going to view myself as a failure. I don't know.
No, it's not. It's not necessarily. It's not the individual's failure. It's the failure of the system
Society.
of the dream to fulfill the individual's needs.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, you know, there's a premonition of death in that poem, and I was reading the poems that you sent me, and I get the sense of the pull of gravity, of the earth, of time. All these things you seem to deal with. Even a premonition of your retirement, which these days would probably work until it would drop. But I mean, you know, but anyway.
Until I'm 80.
But so what is this? I mean, you know, you seem like a cheerful guy, but death is always looming. You know.
Yeah, it's and you know, like I said before, these are some of the primary themes that are at work throughout the entire manuscript. You know, I'm a poet. I take things hard, emotional person, and plus, you know, nobody really is that interested in a poem about things that go well.
Right.
So you choose to write about things.
Oatmeal cookies.
Right. There's an audience for that, but I think they're under 10.
Do that as their Hallmark cards.
Right. So,
but does a poet have to be, you know?
No.
And you're not.
No,
I mean, there's,
no.
you know,
There's always hope.
Enjoying. There's always hope.
There's always hope.
Right.
And the first section of the book, which is titled "Everything I've Ever Buried," isn't necessarily a comment about death, although death is one of the themes. But death, like when you get your tarot read, death can also be rebirth and renewal. Just because
that's right, because
buried.
you rot and the flowers grow out
Exactly.
of the whole thing.
Exactly.
Right? It's the whole cycle.
Exactly.
Yeah. Of course, that's not very comforting to me. I mean, be fertilizer. You know?
Right. Well, you know, there's something to be said for being good fertilizer too.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's probably the most successful thing I've done. Anyway, I want you usually use about 10 minutes in Poet to Poet, for you to read your poems, whatever poems you wish. I would hope you read Nighthawks, but I won't hold a gun to your head on that.
I will read Nighthawks.
Okay.
I'll read
and
a couple other
just
ones.
read for another 10 minutes.
Sure.
And I'll just move out of the way.
All right. I'll start with
Play with
Nighthawks.
my little recorder because it failed.
Do you want me to look into the camera while I read?
Yeah. Show the mug.
Okay. So, this is Nighthawks, and as Doug and I were just talking, it's based on the painting Nighthawks by Edward Hopper, which is probably one of the most iconic pieces that everyone would be familiar with. And again, it's not necessarily about the painting itself. It's not meant to capture what the painting looks like. It's meant to capture the kinds of themes that Hopper was interested in portraying in his particular work. And the tone of the poem, I wanted to also capture the sort of the playful tone that Hopper has in his work, that sort of set against some of the mundane and morose themes. So Nighthawks. Nightfall is in for the evening, resting on everything with its shadows, tired from lifting heavy day upon its back. And leaning into tall buildings has never once been easy. For now, its long arms hug the counter beneath our feet and drape across our shoulders. We each bow a little beneath the weight, are that much closer to our cups because of it, that much closer to the ground beneath us. We will meet up again then, there. For now, we sit and drink, leaning back a little sometimes to uncrease the curl in our spines, or lean our faces into the glow of electric light, the way we might to break the water's surface one last time, before slipping down far beneath the waves, with the shadow of night beneath our heels even then. And I'm going to share a poem that you saw back when we interviewed in December, called Jesus Was a Handsome Man.
Yes.
So this one's actually been published recently in the Cape Rock, which is published out of Southeast Missouri State.
Okay.
So Jesus was a handsome man, and again deals with the themes that we were just talking about. So Jesus was a handsome man. It's clear to see locks of pure light, eyes and the oceans in them perfect for wading in. Elvis was a handsome man too, swimming with fire, a voice too free to keep as his own, roaming alone without him now. My father knew him, Memphis, Tennessee, where no one feels at home alone beside the river, that treacherous ride into the Gulf. And when he sang, we were perfect sanctuaries, Desire's desire seated there. Elvis knew Jesus, raising his voice into perfect clouds with perfect rain over our heads to reach him. Somewhere between the heavens and the fields, where we are sure to die, and yes, I mean my father too, an Elvis refrain astride the carriage of our tongues, the earth holding us close with inelegant treason. And maybe sticking with the death theme. Read a poem called A Comprehensive List of What the Earth Owes Me for My Time here so far.
My late father said that. Hey kid, the earth owes, no one owes you anything. You're not owed anything.
Yeah, so there's definitely a certain amount of irony in the title.
Yes.
And the funny thing is, usually the title, like I've read this publicly before, and the title usually gets a laugh, but the poem's not really funny, so I'm not sure.
See, it's,
Yeah.
Wow.
A comprehensive list of what the earth owes me for my time here so far. Warmth, a fire that reaches the heart first, consuming the flesh from the inside. Liberty, not freedom, but liberty, so that I may call my voice home. Fearlessness, or, at the very least, a heart larger than my fist, that my heart may always win. Love, yes, love too, because it needed me. A place to die in, one with clean corners, one with even walls, one perfect for perfect slumber. Everything I once believed in living on without me, like trees that have lived through winter after winter after winter, without their leaves, without their beautiful, beautiful leaves. That's actually published in Istanbul Literary Review,
Yeah,
which is another,
I was in that once.
yeah.
The funny thing is that Istanbul Literary Review is out of Somerville.
I know,
Yeah,
because
I mean, the guy owns it is in
yeah.
Istanbul, but the woman who puts it out,
Right.
Gloria Midwestern,
Right.
is in Somerville.
This next piece is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, which the title comes from the famous soliloquy from Macbeth, which of course is where Faulkner took
Is that the Scottish play? Or?
Yeah, yeah. Should I not have said Macbeth? Of course, it's the same soliloquy where
Right.
Sound and the Fury comes from. And, you know, it's again to address some of the concerns that are expressed in that soliloquy. You know, Macbeth sort of ruminating over life and death and the purpose of life.
Sort of Hamlet-like.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I was about to say, it's very much like Hamlet's
Maybe
famous
it's older
soliloquy.
than Hamlet.
Yeah. So the title actually is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, which is how the soliloquy starts. Okay, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. And this is the poem that appears in Open to Interpretations,
Okay.
which is actually, I'll explain a little bit. It's a collection put together by Anastasia Fuente. It's poetry to go with photographs.
Okay.
And each author chooses a photograph to write about, and then there's
Okay.
a selection committee, and
Okay.
so mine went with a particular photograph. It's in a nice, beautiful hardbound book. Okay. We are sometimes dreams when we are here, lying low among the daisies, the husks of grass and oranges. We were better intentioned before we landed, though, a heap of ended everything, waiting to rise, less complicated for the wide open space we relaxed into. True, there may be bluer skies, but not here, not now. And green has rarely been greener, or more just like these fields seen from afar. Dare to take our willful leisure out of the frame. Blue and green are all that is left, except for the slow, slow accumulation of time. Yesterday's have-lighted fools the way to dusty death. This moment's rest is a makeshift armor against both sound and fury. From the slim rake of hills that frost the horizon, we are less than the shadow of a cloud. But let us prefer it this way for now, our backs pressing down firmly, the light giving way beneath the weight. Shall I go on?